Hello there. I'm Zoe Routh, and this is the backers only Q&A. First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for backing my very first Kickstarter campaign and for investing in your leadership journey with Power Games. I'm really proud of this book. First of all, I love the cover. I think the color is amazing. And that's just the superficial bit. I'm also really proud of what this book says about power and what we can do to share power better. And I believe that collaboration is the future of leadership, and learning how to share power is the future that we all need to lean into. So thank you. Thank you for being part of the campaign. Oh, I've got to let somebody into the room. I'll just press pause and say hello. That was fun. I just got to meet MC, which is terrific. And we just had a little chat about the book and his interest in it, which is fantastic. So, all right, back to my plan that I promised you. First of all, why this book? I've been thinking about this book for 5 years, ever since I published People Stuff. And if you've read People Stuff, you know that I talk a little bit about power and my research around power there. And this is also our first introduction to leadership archetypes. And the 5 leadership archetypes in People Stuff appear in Power Games, more specifically when we talk about their shadow. So I've been kind of obsessing and ruminating and exploring concepts about power in leadership and power in teams and how it's used and abused by the people I come across, whether it's observing politics or other organizations or working with my clients. And there's a couple of things I've noticed about power is that people struggle to talk about it. They're like, when you ask people what they think about power, they kind of just shiver and shrink and don't want to have anything to do with it because it's associated with abuse of power. So people talk about power, they imagine power over. And there are many different explanations and uses of power, expressions of power that are not just power over, control, domination, the negative sides and use of power. And that's what sort of set me off in the journey of exploration to this. And I knew that I wanted to write a book about power. So we can start to have conversations about power, tease out what it is and how we can use it better. So that was the genesis of the book. And I think it's delivered on a lot of that, and it expanded a little bit too. The other reason why I wrote this book is that people are really suffering at work. And that really came true as I did my research and talked to people about what's been your experience of office politics and power games in the workplace. And everybody, 100% of people I spoke to had experienced some form of office politics and toxic power games in the workplace, which was very deflating, I have to say. It was very discouraging to know that so many people had negative experiences with their colleagues and kind of put off going to work in some ways. Some people left very disillusioned, disgruntled, often traumatized by their experiences. They were bullied or they're sidelined or gaslighted or undermined, any of those really awful experiences. Then a lot of them were left reeling and wondering, what have I done? How did I miss this? Particularly the gaslighting side of things. I had at least 2 CEOs say, I missed the signs. I'm not sure that I dealt with this soon enough, early enough, or well enough at all. And they really doubted themselves as leaders. And I thought, wow, this whole idea of how power manifests itself, whether you have an authority crown, as I called it in the book, whether you have a crown of authority or whether you're in the trenches vying for positional influence, it can be quite a negative thing. It can also be a joyful thing. And that was the best part about the research, is finding when people learned how to share power and learned how to collaborate well together to build something collectively that was supportive of one another and was celebrated. Those were the highlights, I guess. So I think I went on a personal journey of great optimism in terms of what we can do with shared power and collaborative power, to great deflation, to it's kind of ended up sitting at tempered optimist. And I think that's how I describe myself now, as a tempered optimist. So that's why the book. Now, diving specifically into the campaign of Power Games, so this is my first Kickstarter. So I had 2 goals. Um, initially with the campaign. One was to test out the platform to see what it was like to do a crowdsourcing campaign. And the second one was to see if I could expand my audience beyond my immediate network of leaders and clients and so on. So I experimented with the platform and did get new people into my network. So yay, success on that count. The unstated intention for the campaign was to blow the socks off this book and have it be incredibly successful, well known, people snapping up copies of the book. So that is one of the curse of optimism I have. It's when I did my Clifton Strengths, like that sort of optimism is one of my key superpowers, but it's also an Achilles heel because I can overinflate expectations. So that's how I'm framing how the Kickstarter campaign went. Here are the facts about it. It was a 17-day campaign. We launched on 19th of May, 2025. It closed on 5 of June. We had 26 initial backers, one late backer. So you can allow for, once your campaign closed, you can have late backers who pay a little bit more of a premium for the items, but they want to come in on the campaign. So I had one of those. The total funds raised was $1,540, including $175 of that for shipping. My actual cost for shipping were $179. So I didn't estimate the shipping costs correctly. And this is apparently every creator's nightmare is trying to figure out shipping. You'd think it would be straightforward, but no, things change once price might change when you go to the post office from when you went initially. Anyway, that's the thing. I got pretty close. Kickstarter took a fee, so I ended up with $1,324 of the $1,540. So Kickstarter took $216 in fees, and that's the deal. So we were 303% funded of my initial target of $500. Also recommended by a lot of creators is to set a $500 kind of early threshold campaign if it's your first campaign. So we actually hit that in the first 2 days. Thank goodness. That was really good. We had 24 followers of the project before launch. 9 of those converted and bought something, which is a 38% conversion rate. I have no idea if that's good or not. That's just what the numbers are. 3 people pledged without a reward, which surprised me. That's people saying, oh, I just want to give you money because I believe in you and I believe in this project. I don't want a book. I don't need a book. I'm like, wow, okay. Oh, great. So 3 people did that. The average pledge was $57. So people chose to pick a suite of things, not just an item. They liked the package deal, which was cool. The other interesting observation, there was no other nonfiction leadership book currently on the site. So when I look at the market for who's buying through Kickstarter, there's not a lot of buyers who read nonfiction, specifically leadership books, going to Kickstarter to find their leadership books. So that kind of taught me, this is a lesson learned now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, which is probably not the best platform if you're going to launch a nonfiction leadership book. Really good for things like sci-fi, fantasy, romance, that kind of stuff. So hungry fiction readers and gamers and that kind of thing. Leadership books, probably not the best site. But there you go. I did it. We funded. Here we are. Okay, so that's the results of the campaign. What would I do differently is the next one. Here we go. So if I were to do it over again, I would shift a few things. I would probably drop the prices on the ebook and audiobook and bundle it. And I went back and had a look at other campaigns, and I think a lot of buyers go to Kickstarter to get one of 2 things. Cheap bundled deals of interesting things that they're interested in, whether it's books or whatever. 2, they want to be part of bringing a project to life. So that's kind of like a first to market kind of incentive. And 3, they want customized special editions of things. So I would do all that. I would drop the price and bundle it more cheaply. So that really the first people to buy on Kickstarter would be getting an exclusive first to market cheapest version of the product. And they would also have the option to buy a premium product such as the hardback. But the hardback is not just the only thing. The hardback would have special extra content that is exclusive to the hardback and wouldn't be pre-printed in the paperback, because I had 0 people buying hardbacks, which was also quite interesting. In terms of what people bought, the most popular item was ebook and audiobook. And then the package deals after that. So, which was really curious. Like I think there was five people who bought unsigned paperbacks and six who bought signed paperbacks. Nobody bought a hardback, and nobody went for the big ticket items, which really floored me. Like I offered a huge discounted deal on my one-to-one coaching services, which I don't even list on my website anymore. Zero. I'm like, what the? And usually I'm quite an in-demand coach, so I thought that was really strange. And the other things that they didn't purchase was access to my workshops or the team workshops. So that's had me scratching my head. I'm like, these high-end offers should have converted. They were really heavily discounted. So the explanations I have for that is twofold, and I don't know which one it is. I suspect it's the platform is the first possible explanation of that, is that a lot of my leadership readers didn't want to take the time to decipher how Kickstarter worked or weren't interested in being part of a crowdfunding campaign. So they stayed away from it and just kind of just blew in, blew out. That's the first thing. And the second thing is they just weren't interested in those services. Maybe a bit of both. So to do it next time, I think if I was going to do a nonfiction leadership book, I probably wouldn't use Kickstarter. If I was going to launch a fiction campaign, I would definitely do ebook, audiobook, digital duo, a paperback, a Kickstarter special edition with extra content. Same thing with the hardback. Um, and those are primarily the things I would do differently. I guess the other thing I would have done differently, which I noted for this campaign, I did not do, but I did for people stuff, is use a publicist. So I can roll out 3 months of book publicity with the launch. I didn't do that because the timing. I'm going into winter, and winter is a period of travel and skiing for me. So I don't have the time or inclination, to be honest, to be doing TV interviews and radio interviews and articles. Like it's pretty full on when you hire a publicist. You're pretty much on the go. I would rather be skiing. So the timing was not good. That was a selfish reason. And I didn't use a street team, which is rally the troops and get them to help me promote. Same sort of timing issue. I didn't have the resources to do that. And the third thing I didn't do, which I could have done, is an author collaboration where other similar authors would gather together, we'd mutually promote our books. So those are all things I can do later. And I suspect that's what I will do, is have a look at the book in 2026 and look at when to relaunch this, maybe do a different campaign, maybe work around one of the workshops I did want to run and test it publicly that way and reinvigorate the interest in the book from there, because I have 2 months of skiing ahead of me. Yes. And book writing. I'm writing fiction. More on that in a little bit. Okay, so the questions I have from people is, what is your writing process? And it does differ a little bit between fiction and nonfiction. So if you're not familiar with my work, I have 5 leadership books. Power Games was number 5. And I have 4 novels out in a series called the Gaia series. And I'm writing the 5th book and the final book in that series at the moment. And that's the Olympus Project series, and the last book is called Olympus Dawn. So for nonfiction, for Power Games, the way my process works for writing nonfiction is I think about the concepts first. So, well, I did a lot of reading about power, and so I was looking at both nonfiction books and fiction books through the lens of how are the power dynamics in this particular research and books that I was reading, kind of gathering ideas and concepts and case studies as I went. When I was getting ready to start actually drafting the book, I mapped out the core models. One is the 4 spheres of power. That's really central to the book, and one of the first chapters in there is like, how do you lead yourself? What causes us to feel powerless or powerful, and how can we cultivate that? So that was the structure of the first chapter. So I draw out the diagram, and I think I included a picture of me drawing it somewhere along the way in one of my newsletters, is mapping it out. I sat in the corner of my stairwell in the sun and mapped it all out. Yeah, random. I don't sit at my desk and do that kind of work. I have to leave my desk and go to another space. And sometimes it's sitting on the stairs. So that was part 1 of the process. I knew I wanted to write about shadow archetypes, because that feeds right into power abuse. So went back to people stuff and looked at the archetypes there and looked at the shadow play. Then I started mapping some of these toxic behaviors that we saw to those archetypes. What are the behaviors that a tyrant does? What are the behaviors that a manipulator does? What are the behaviors of a bully, etc. Now, some of them map quite easily, like bully. There's a lot of bullying behaviors that are obvious like that. So that was the next part, is mapping those behaviors that we saw in observable toxic office politics and putting them through there. Then I wanted to tackle the question of collaboration and how we can actually share power better in teams. And that whole chapter, I love that chapter in this book because it pulls together everything I've been working on for the last 20 years with teams in terms of what sets a team up to do well. And the checklists that go alongside that chapter are really quite helpful, I think. So make sure you do tap into that bonus zip load, zip file, which has that checklist of how to build high performing teams, because it's all there. It's also all in the book. And my premise is that when we set up teams for success with strong structure, leveraging people's strengths and ensuring psychosocial safety, then you have the good chance to rein power in and to have it expressed well and competently in a team. So that's how you can build collaboration tactics. One of the books I read, which was, oh, geez, what was it called? I know it's probably in my reference library at the back of this. It was really awesome. Let's see if I've got it here. Further reading, Cialdini, Connors, Franco, Green, Robin. It was by just a total brain snap here. Samantha Slade's Going Horizontal was fantastic for that. Starhawk, The Empowerment Manual, was a fantastic book on collaboration. So those two books will probably stand out for building collaborative practice. So that's sort of the research and cobbling together the ideas. The other, how do you sit down and actually go through the writing process? I do a combination of things. I dictates very fast. So I can actually pump out a lot of words. And the imagery that I use for what it's like to write is just get some clay on the spinning wheel if you're making pottery. So you spin that wheel, you chuck a lump of clay on there, and then you shape it. So for me, dictating is throwing a lump of clay onto the spinning wheel. And you just kind of blah, 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 talking about the topic. And once I have words on a page, I find it much easier then to go and finesse it and shape it and fine tune it. So that's sort of one of the processes I find pretty easily. So I speak to the topic of, if I'm talking about cauldron of courage, that I'd be talking about courage, blah, 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 blah. I used ChatGPT quite a lot for research as well. So I'd use it as a sounding board and for research. So I might say, can you give me an example of an organization that is struggling with culture? And so up something would pop. I'd also save some of my research, like Channel 9 had a recent culture report, which was pretty bad, and published all the recommendations. ANU did recently as well, but their report came out after the book was going through publication, so missed out on that great case study. So yeah, I dictate and chop and change and finesse, and then I have an editor. So this particular book, I used a different team. First time using with Publishing Central, and they had an editor as part of their crew. She didn't do a lot of structural editing. It was more suggestions about phrasing and formatting than anything too rigorous. And then we go through a rehash and so on. So that's kind of like the nonfiction process, if you like. Sometimes I don't dictate and I just do this, type away. I do it in chunks. I tend to have word count goals for each day, knowing that I have a deadline. So once I engage the editor, I kind of reverse engineered the deadline. Otherwise, you can just, say you're going to write a book. Without a deadline, I find I don't do it. So I had a deadline. The editor was expecting the first draft by blah, which meant I had to draft the text by this date, give me a week or two to revise it, review it on my own before I sent it over. So working to a deadline, I knew that I had to produce 2,000 words a day, let's say, each week. And I cranked it out, whether it was dictating or typing, and made sure to try and keep my word count on top of my word count. Otherwise, much stress. But it probably took me about 3 months to write the first draft. So once you do all the research and stuff, writing nonfiction is quite a lot easier because I already had the structure. It's just filling in the gaps in some ways, you know? So there's that. Okay, how is nonfiction writing different to writing fiction? I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of water. Now, fiction and nonfiction are the same in that they both have structure. They're different in that that structure is completely different. So with nonfiction, it's the general structure for a nonfiction book is set the scene. You know, what's the case for this book? Why this? Why now? Why me? What's important about this? What's my angle? And then unpack your argument, you know, so unpacking your idea and advancing it. Fiction is about advancing a life. So the structure centers around your characters. What is the journey they're each going to go on? What is the It's archetypal also, you know, there's different archetypal journeys they can go on. There's the hero's journey, which is like seeking adventure, coming across challenges, learning about yourself and the world, and taking back that knowledge to your community. So you go away, you learn stuff, you have challenges, and you come back as a teacher. That's kind of hero's journey. You might have bastardized that a little bit. That's an example of one character arc. Or you can have the rise and fall kind of journey, or you can have the fall and rise kind of character journey. There's lots of different arcs. So for me, fiction is way more complex because I'm tracking a whole bunch of different things. I'm tracking what is the big theme that I want to address? Who are my characters? What are their growth journeys or character arcs? How do they interrelate with each other and push each other? Then with the character mapping, I also look at their leadership maturity, which I'm not sure that other authors do. I think that's probably unique to me. So I look at their leadership framework, their beliefs around the particular topic that I'm exploring. Then there's plot. And plot is something I actually struggle with. I'm really good at imagining characters and their inside worlds. I'm not so good at imagining challenges. I'm getting better at that as I explore story. And there's different pacing to consider as well. So how do you get that stuff going? And that's where I use ChatGPT quite a lot, is suggesting different plot twists or challenges for my characters once I get to a particular way. So I have a loose structure. I know what I want them to do. I don't necessarily know all the detail of what's going to happen scene by scene when I start writing. I have the general arc of, for example, Olympus Dawn. I know that they're going to Mars. So one big chunk of the book is the trip to Mars. Another big part of the book is on Mars and resolving the conflict that took them there. And the first part of the book is how do we get going on this trip to Mars? So before Mars, on the way to Mars, and at Mars. So that's like the huge plot stuff. And then trying to bring in the conflicts of the different characters to ensure they all weave together is that process. And then in terms of writing, it's quite similar. Dictate, 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 dump, polish. This time I'm using ChatGPT because it's so much more accelerated with its O3 version to give me critique on the blurbs that I put in there. And so that's actually teaching me quite a lot about pacing and character development and word choice and flow and sentence structure. So I'm actually educating myself as we go through this with getting feedback and critique from ChatGPT on each scene that I write. So that has slowed the process a lot, but it's helping me finesse the work as we go along. So that's how nonfiction writing is similar and different to fiction writing. Most surprising thing I learned about the research, yeah, probably the book that hit me the most was the book Psychopaths, about psychopaths. Called Snakes in Suits by Robert Hare. And I didn't know much about psychopaths. And what I did learn through this book was sobering, I guess is the way to put it. 4% of people in the workplace are psychopaths, and psychopaths are people who do not have the capacity for emotional intelligence. They don't have, for emotional empathy. They can understand emotional intelligence. They don't have it themselves in terms of they don't have empathy. They understand emotions and therefore can manipulate people because they have no ethical conscience around it. So it's really fascinating when you come across somebody who doesn't have the capacity to feel the way that other people do. How do they get excited about anything? And what gets them excited is power games, actually. It's how they feel kind of a zhuzh of dopamine hit by manipulating their way to get to the top. And that's what a lot of psychopaths do. They understand people brilliantly and do the dance and all the manipulation, backhanding, gaslighting, lying. It's all there. It's all kind of attributed to psychopaths, and they can just do it. They can be your best friend one day, and once they got what they want out of you, they drop you like a hot potato. And this is incredibly damaging because people buy into them. They like, but our relationship was so real. Like they were so genuine. No, they weren't. They were just psychopaths who were very good at imitating that. And a really great fiction book I just finished on the weekend is called How to Kill a Client by Joanna Jenkins, I think it is. She's an Australian author. And this is a story about a high-end legal firm, and one of their clients dies. Everybody hated him because he was a total jerk. Who did it? So it's a who done it. And in that, you have multiple points of view, and you get inside the head of a couple of different psychopaths in the organization, all who have very credible motivation to kill this guy. So it kept me guessing right to the end. But I thought, this is power games. This is how psychopaths act at work, and it's incredibly frightening. And so, Snakes in Suits used a couple of case studies and unpacked that, and it was frightening. And it's frightening and sobering. And I think this is why I call myself a tempered optimist now, because I like to believe the best in people. And because there's psychopaths out there, made me realize not everybody's good. And some people are deliberately jerks. And that was not good for my happy place. So that was probably the most surprising thing I learned. AI. I mentioned AI already. Did I use AI to write the book? I used how I used AI, and specifically ChatGPT and then Pro Writing Aid. Those are the two AI apps that I use. Is ChatGPT I use for a lot of research. I use it as a sounding board. I used it as a critique. I got it to give me sample language of how to deal with, let's say, a bully. So it came up with different phrases, etc. Did it write the book for me? No. Anything that it write, I just read and went, it's not my voice. It's not sanitized. It's sanitized. It's not my voice, and it didn't feel right. So it was a lot of editing in terms of the stuff that it produced as suggestions to shape it into my particular voice, my particular bent, my anecdotes, my language. And I'm pretty sure ChatGPT would never say douchebaggery. And I think it appears at least twice in the book. That's definitely not ChatGPT. So that's how I use AI to write the book, or to help write the book, I should say. So what's my advice to new writers? First of all is determine what your goal is. And one of my writing mentors, Joanna Penn, says, you probably want one of three things: fame, fortune, or freedom. What's your primary one? You might want all three. You can't have them all at once generally. Fame, do you want to be famous? Do you want fortune? You want to make a lot of money and you don't really care about being famous? Or do you want freedom? You don't really care about fame or money. You just want the freedom to do your creative life. Depending on what your answer is to those three will determine how you approach your writing life. So that's the first thing, is determine what your goal is with whatever writing project you have. The second one is determine your audience. So who are you writing for? And don't say everyone needs this book. Not everyone needs power games or is open to power games. So my audience for this book was CEO and senior executives. So people who sit in the C-suite, who have the capability of influencing systems and making proactive change. Potentially, this will be an attractive book for people who are struggling with power games, don't have positional power. It's a long road for them in that case. The first chapter is probably the most relevant to them, and less so for the team and organizational power structures. So I really pitched it to CEO and senior executives. So determine your goal, determine your audience, and know your particular genre or niche. So in the leadership book space, I knew quite a lot about the other books around power, and this one sits in a unique slot in comparison to a lot of the other ones, such as the 48 Rules of Power or The Seven Laws of Power by Jeffrey Pfeffer. Those two are actually about power is a drug that you can use, so and this is how you use it, which is like with very low level of ethic considerations, more like the Machiavellian prince text than anything else. And then there was a lot of personal empowerment books. This is not that one. Then there was a lot about collaboration, collaborative power. This has got elements of that. So I knew where it fit in there. For fiction, it's about knowing your genre as well. So I write in sci-fi dystopia and with a crossover into techno thrillers, eco techno thrillers. And so it's got a little pocket of an audience. And that helps shape your work so the readers make use of what you write and enjoy what you write. So that's my advice to young writers or to emerging or new writers, I guess. Those are the big kahunas. Everything else is tactical in terms of how you put a book together. And then marketing, well, that comes back to strategy. And you come back to those first principles again in terms you want fame, fortune, or freedom. What am I writing next? I am writing Olympus Dawn, which is the fourth full-length novel in the Gaia series and the fifth book overall and the finale of the series. And about 40,000 words in, so that's not quite halfway. My deadline for my editor is the 1st of September. So I'm tracking okay. Depends how much writing I do while I'm skiing. I have a couple more days this week. I'm away until 21st of July. I have a week back in the office and then I'm away again for a few weeks. So it's touch and go. We'll see how we go. What do you like about writing? So my friend Elka asked me this question, when you write, how has it changed you? And I thought, well, geez, okay, has it changed me? And she jumped straight to her experience as a painter. When she started taking painting classes, she started to see the world differently. She paid attention to the way, which direction the light was coming and capturing little pictures in moments. And so she became more observant. And I guess to answer this question it's a two-part question really. What do I like about writing and how has it changed me? What I like about writing is words. I love putting together a sentence that evokes an idea or evokes a feeling or transports someone somewhere. There's nothing like a fantastic expression. And I work hard for that, and not every sentence is as fabulous as that. Put all together, it creates a journey, an experience for someone. And I really, as I'm writing Olympus Dawn, and as I've written the other books, I'm thinking more and more about the reader. Like, will the reader enjoy this? Will this give them a great experience? So that's what I enjoy about writing. How has it changed me? It's also helped me be more observant. Though sadly, I find myself not as observant as I'd hoped. And last week, I was walking my usual route to the gym at 6 a.m. and I just paused at the lights, waiting for the lights to change. And I looked behind me and there was this emoji, this face emoji with the love hearts, that one with the three little love hearts around the yellow face. And I thought, geez, when did someone put that up? And I thought that must be new. So I went over to it. I'm like, oh my God, that is not new. That's been here for years. And I never noticed it. And I've been walking past that thing for years. And I did not notice a yellow face emoji with hearts on. And this was on a cement block overlooking a storm drain. Like it was a very unusual place to have art. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't notice that. Then I looked up and I discovered something else I hadn't noticed for a couple of years is the street name. And the street name right there on the sign says Poppy Field. I thought, my goodness, what a beautiful name for a street. I didn't notice it. I've been walking up and down this little patch for years, never noticed these two things. So I got lost in going, what else am I not noticing? So, whereas I like to say a writer has helped me be more observant, maybe it's helped me be a better thinker. And I think that's probably true. Like, I think a lot more about people dynamics and interactions and growth for what's happening to them. I look for patterns in people's relationships as part of my work and in LinkedIn and seeing what's happening in dynamics. So my research and my writing has helped me see the world differently. So those lenses, those frameworks actually do help quite a lot. Okay, I have a question from Roxanne. She sent through on email. Let me just get that up for her. She said, when there is a mammoth such a mammoth amount of info out there for people to consume, especially now with AI. How do you keep your motivation during the process? How do you get through the project without losing interest or doubting yourself in the project? What do you do if or when you feel this way? So there's a couple of embedded assumptions in the question is that, oh, let me see if I can interpret the question. Because there's so much information that can be accessible through AI, where does that put something like a book? Why put out a book when AI is just at the tip of your fingertips and all the answers are there? I think that's a worthwhile question. And it kind of makes me step back and think, what is the purpose of a book? For me, it's about connecting one mind to another. So when you pick up a book that somebody has written, you are invited into their psyche. You're invited into another world. And it is a gift that the writer gives to the reader to help explore another world. And I think that's kind of a sacred experience. Can AI do that? Well, it's pretty good. Like AI writing is actually pretty good. What it can't do is self-initiate a creation. It can respond to prompts. So you don't just say, write me a whole novel about X and Y. It needs some more guidance. It could probably toss out something out there, but as a reader, do you want to read that? Well, what you want to read if you're a reader is to learn something, to grow something, to feel something, to be invigorated, to be inspired, to be encouraged, whatever the purpose of the book. So the purpose of Power Games is to uplift and to give you practical tools to deal with the shenanigans that you experience at work and a pathway to building better collaborative teams and healthier organizations. That's its promise. So how do I get dismayed that AI is producing so much stuff or can produce so much stuff? Is there a role for my work? And I have to say, I don't get dismayed by AI at all. And I don't even get dismayed by people who are generating books using AI to pump out text and so on. That's a matter for them. And I keep sacred to me the people who will pick up my books and read them. I want to create an experience that delivers something that is fabulous for them. And AI actually helps me do that better. It's teaching me how to write better. It's teaching me how to craft a better story. So I don't feel deflated by that. I know a lot of creators do worry that the competition for art will be magnified with the fast tracking of production of books and so on. That's not really my experience at all. Like I don't really worry about that. I'm going to continue to write books because I enjoy the creative process so much, bringing something to life. Like after I finish this Gaia series, I'm turning to write historical fiction, which I love to read, and I'm going to write some books set in ancient Rome. So I just love learning about ancient Rome, the power dynamics there, the emergence of tyrants, the emergence of emperors, what makes a good emperor, a bad emperor, what makes life, how does life work in ancient Rome. Like I just find that absolutely fascinating. So I'm going to be spending some time writing some novels there. And I will seek out other people who are also interested in that and who would be keen to immerse themselves in my stories. And so what does that got to do with AI? Like AI doesn't hold me back from any of that. So Rox, I'm not sure if hopefully that answers your question. Where I do feel deflated, it's not in the face of AI. It's in the face of, will I ever get more readers? How do I find my readers? That side of things, like the sales and marketing side of putting out a book is quite onerous. And it takes a lot of time and money to produce a book. So this book cost me 15 grand to produce with the editing and printing of 400 copies. Like that's a significant investment that my business helped me to make. And I'm hoping when I sell workshops off the back of this, probably into next year, because I've got a big move ahead of me. We're moving to Newcastle in the spring. So my selling of the programs off this book will be delayed until next year. I'll make back my money through that way, not by selling $30 books, though that is a dream. I'd love to have enough people snap up that many copies that I get my investment back. So that's where I get deflated a little bit. It's like, the comparisonitis pops in, where you look at other authors who do a book launch, they're heaps popular, they get a ton of rave reviews, they seem to sell out 5,000 copies, and you're like, why them, not me, kind of stuff. Um, that's sort of where I think I get deflated, in which case I have to come back to what is my primary goal? Fame, fortune, or freedom? For me, it's freedom. I don't care about being famous. I care about creating work that I love to create and that the readers who find it enjoy. And my task as a marketer and as a businesswoman is to help people find the work that they will enjoy as well. So helping those readers who enjoy the things that I enjoy find my work is the work of a business marketer when you're trying to promote your books. So hopefully that sort of answers that question. All right, MC, I'm not sure if anything sparked your uh, questions there. You have a chance now if you wanted to ask a question to do it. That was everything on my list. I'm just going to see if there's anything in the chat if you wanted to ask a question through the chat or to ask me personally. Go ahead.
Yeah, just interesting sharing of your experience, especially with AI as well. Just wondering, uh, if you could do it over again, would you have chosen not to use AI?
No,
Mm,
no. I mean, the book is better with it. So it offered me more deeper, richer ideas. I think the book without the AI research help, would have missed out a big chunk of understanding about these particular behaviors.
mm.
So I'm AI positive. I'm what Joanna Penn calls a AI assisted artisanal author. AI assisted artisanal author. So I'm a creator that leverages the power to unleash bigger ideas. So definitely my ideas expanded, the research expanded. It's a better tool because of it. This is a massive conversation about AI and the production of art and where is the value to the reader. And people always want to know how much of it is you and how much of it is the work. I think in this book, reading the book, because I read the audio book myself. I didn't use a digital voice. I can feel my voice in there. I can feel my stories, my perspective, my point of view, my tone, my emotion. So it's definitely a connector there. Could AI mimic that? Yeah, probably. But there's no joy in that for me as a creator. Every creator is different and everybody's got their own slant on it. Why do you ask that question? I'm curious.
Because yeah, it does sound as if like it's very, very useful. And maybe I'm a bit old school myself. There's no thinking of when I was in university, we didn't have AI to begin
Yeah,
with, right? And it was
yeah,
always like it's a all the research that's done by myself. And yeah, sure. I mean, I'm still skeptical myself. I mean, I've used AI and I think it's useful at times.
yeah,
Maybe where I'm lacking it is I don't know the extent AI can help,
yeah,
and to what extent I can leverage more for my own work. I'm not a creator like yourself, but I do use AI for shorter copies, business communications, and
yeah,
it is very useful. And Yeah, just that, it is a very contentious. Recently in Singapore, it was on the news where students were marked zero on their university courses because one of them like used AI just to um sort out their references alphabetically. So it was like what? Of course, then interestingly, they repealed the decision for that case, but there were two other students who were found to have used AI for their research, and then they were heavily penalized, and the penalties potentially will affect their entire university scores. So thinking about that and then now thinking about what you have done, like I see potential in that, but society seems to take, at least academia, for example, takes a hard stance on use of AI.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, central to that is who created the work, who's the author of the work, And universities have been railing against plagiarism since there were universities, It's like, how can we prove that this is the student's actual work? Which is why we had handwritten exams, you have the human in there. And even then, people tried to fudge it out by tagging in a friend sometimes to write, to take exams for them, but do identity switch. So where there's systems, there's people who are always going to want to breach those systems or, cheat in them. And I think there's that idea of cheating. I've been thinking about this, the progression of tools for the writer. And I think about some of the great writers of the past, Virginia Woolf, or even into the 1800s, Emily Bronte, like writing Wuthering Heights, like, oh my God, what a masterpiece. And she would have written it not with a pen, but with like
Quill.
the feathering, like with a quill, handwriting to produce a text of that magnificence with handwriting tools is an extraordinary labor. And then imagine what she would have said to the typewriter, which makes things a little bit easier because then you don't have to decipher handwriting. And then you have the launch of that from the typewriter to the computer, which made things again a lot easier. Imagine, instead of having a handwritten draft that you're trying to move paragraphs around and rewriting it and then sending it to like the whole production piece was really slow and laborious. And there's something compelling and admirable about that. And then also incredibly sad because imagine if Emily Bronte had access to a computer, what else could she have generated and created in her short life? And what else could have Jane Austen have produced if she'd had a computer or ChatGPT? So I think there's potentially an element of that. People worry that technology diminishes the creative process or delegitimizes it somehow. There are still court cases going out there. Is AI fair use of existing works, knowing that ChatGPT and other AIs scrape the internet to use their source material? And should the original creators get a kickback for that? And there's two cases ruled recently that it was deemed fair use. So meaning ChatGPT, or it was Facebook and maybe it was ChatGPT in the other case, said that their source material, it was fair use, that the works produced as a result of that education was a completely different component. So okay to use. Now, pirated works, different story altogether. So if they scraped a pirate site, the fact they scraped pirated works was contentious. What they didn't use in the court case was the fact that these entities, which train for free on all these works of art, now are able to help create rival works, which will then show unfair disadvantage to the original works. So that was not presented in the court case, and that may come out, but I think the horse is bolted on all that. So these tools are out there, and I'm not sure you can put the genie back in the bottle, just to add another metaphor in there. It's interesting that Singapore is coming down so hard on all that stuff, but Singapore is very conservative in a lot of areas. So in some way, and really heavily regulated in a lot of its social world. So I'm not surprised in some ways that that's out there. I'm not sure what the situation here is with AI use in universities. I don't think it's as problematic. Certainly, you wouldn't hear of somebody getting a zero because they used it to alphabetize a list or even to do research. I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
People have been caught out in workplaces for using it for research and not checking the source, and ChatGPT has made up something. Like there's still that needs to be sorted. But the tools are getting better and better. Gemini in particular is a lot more reliable because they offer so many different cited sources as part of their deep research.
I
Yeah.
see. Okay. So it sounds like anything then as a creator, we have to be even more vigilant with what comes out of AI, right? We have to maybe do a cross check and make sure that whatever it says it's actually true as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So when I was doing research for my second full-length novel, Olympus Bound, I used it to research helium-3 because helium-3 is on the moon. I'm like, what is this helium-3 stuff? So I asked ChatGPT for tell me about helium-3 and stuff. And then I'm like, is it just making this stuff up? So I went into Google and cross-referenced to other sites about helium-3 so that it was within the bounds of scientific normality and possibility. So I did that quite a lot. I double checked the references, and now you can ask it, please give me the sources. And often I check the sources also. And for power games, when I was researching the different, I think it was for whistleblower protection acts. It gave me a list of whistleblower protection acts in the different regions of Australia. And I went and double checked all of those, and a couple of them were out of date. So I had to update that list. So ChatGPT gave me a current up-to-date list. So I had to do that work. So it's important when you're doing citing references to do that particular stuff and to check facts. And as a creator too, if you're using it, like some people heavily use AI to generate words and they would just lightly edit it. I'm the other way around. I kind of barf it up and use it to fine tune. Being as a creator, you want to know that your work is something you're proud of. Now, a lot of people are producing work that they don't really care about. They're just trying to do it for money, like that's their primary objective. And so they would put out a thing that's more sloppy. There's a lot of AI slop, and I think that's what a lot of people, creative people, are railing against too. There's a lot of slop out there. But the same thing was true when ebooks came onto the scene. So before it was just paperbacks and hardbacks. That's all you could get your books in. And when ebooks came on, they're like, oh, there's going to be all this junk out there. Like it's going to swamp the market and people are going to just not want to buy books because they'll be terrible. And that's when the self-publishing took off as well. Oh, there'll be no regulators and ebooks will be terrible. Well, what proved to be true is that, yeah, there was a lot of slop, and people, if they read them, just went, ugh, don't want to do that. And it also is true that self-publishers who put a lot of care and attention into their work found a happy, hungry audience for their work. And so it no longer became true that self-publishing was slop. There's opportunity for slop, but our readers are the ones who make the judgment in the end,
Mm,
not the gatekeepers. And so I keep that at the heart of what I'm doing as a writer and as somebody who's putting things onto the market that other people might want to read and enjoy.
nice, nice. And I look forward to your next work.
Thank you so much, MC. I think this has been great. Thank you so much for spending an hour with me. I really appreciate hanging out with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to know before I let you go for the evening?
No, that's all. If anything, I will shoot you an email, but just going to enjoy reading your book.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to meet a reader who has been on board for the journey with the Kickstarter and through to getting the book and reading the book. And hopefully you're able to implement it in your role at work as well.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'll let you know. Thank you so much,
You're
Zoe.
welcome. Have a good
Catch you
evening.
around. Cheers. Bye.